dear participants, respected panelists, especially Dr. Matthew Samuel. We are really grateful to you, and we are delighted and I think honored IPTI. Being a legend, you are here. We learn from your lecture. I think all the panelists and participants we should waiting for your nice lecture. Before starting, I just a few talks regarding the Samuel. I think every panelist know him, but junior doctors and fellows should know about him. I think share few things about him. Dr. Matthew Samuel Talarical, widely known as father of angioplasty in India. He is expert in coronary angioplasty, carotid stenting, coronary stenting, and rotablation, with a rich experience of more than 3 decades. He was born on 6 January 1948 in Kottayam, Kerala. He studied till class 12 at Union Christian College in Eluva. Subsequently, he got in his MBBS degree from Government Medical College, Kottayam, in 1974. MD from Stanley Medical College, Chennai, in 1978, and DM in 1981 from Madras Medical College, Chennai. Trained on Dr. N.G. Godres, he is known as father of coronary angioplasty, and returned to India in 1985. At present, he is the director of interventional cardiology and cardiac pathology laboratories, Apollo Hospital, Chennai. He also visiting interventional cardiologist at different hospitals of India, at Lilavati Hospital, Beach Candy Hospital, Oakheart Hospital, H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital, and Research Center. He also teaching faculty various college and hospital around the world in Melbourne, Beijing, Brisbane, Georgia, Washington, Perth, etc. He is the founder convener of the National Angioplasty Registry of India. He is the president. He was president 1995 to 1997 Asia Pacific Society of Interventional Cardiology, chairman of Interventional Cardiology Asia Pacific Society of Cardiology from 1995 to 1999. He was first president of Cardiology Society of India, honorary director Institute of Cardiovascular Disease, Madras Mission, Chennai. He was the co-director of India Live. India Live is now one of the greatest program we know everybody. He's a teaching faculty and live case operator in various international meetings like CIT, Beijing, Singapore, Asia PCR Live, My Live, Malaysia, New York, CCCP, and C3 at Orlando. He's an extraordinary organizer. He was awarded lots of awards. I few awarded Lifetime Achievement 2008 in the field of cardiology from His Excellence Abul Kalam. He got Doctor of Science Award by the Dr. MGR University 2003. He got highest honor Padma Shri by the President of India 2000 and by BC Award in International 1996. A picture is worth 1,000 words. It is the India Live 2015, the ITC Grand Chola, India. He's a great clinician, teacher, trainer, interventional cardiologist, and organizer. But above all, he's a great human being. It is the memorable for my family when in 2015 snapped my wife. My wife always told my daughter, a man in the sky, how he is so humble to touch the ground. So he's learned from him about the humanity. So thank you, sir. We wishes your healthy and long life. Thank you, sir. We are grateful to you to be with us. Thank you, sir. Sir, please few words.
Okay.
Learned audience, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. It's really a great pleasure and a privilege for our IPTA group to invite Professor Samuel Matthew here. And you know, there are interventionists and there are teachers. You will be remembered as a great teacher. You can do angioplasty in so many persons, but you create a legacy by training so many doctors in so many countries. And that's the most important thing, that will be a legacy all over the world. Dr. Matthew Samuel, we are really grateful that you are here. We are eagerly waiting for your lecture, which I think will be excellent. That's all.
Sir, you studied lecture, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to talk to you and participate in IPDI meeting at Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm thankful to
Unmute Dr. Matthew.
Sir, you unmute yourself, sir. Okay, okay, sir.
Sorry. It's my pleasure to participate in this meeting, and I'm very thankful to the kind introduction. And I'd spent a lot of time, at least 10, 15 times I have visited your country, and all the occasions, I really enjoyed your hospitality and the keen interest of all your students and doctors to learn. And they never spared any effort to take out maximum out of me whenever I visited your country. I fondly remember all the occasions. All the institutions I visited was wonderful. I really enjoyed every moment I spent there. Now, I've been asked to take you to the world of left main intervention. What have we learned in last 30 years? This lecture I have decided to divide into 2 sessions. They want me to talk 40 minutes. So 40 minutes is too long a period, but if you want to cover this topic fully, you would need that too. I will try to limit in about 30-35 minutes. I have split it into 2 sections. One is the basics, and then we will go review the literature and try to understand whether we are doing right or is there any revision needed. What are the basics of decision making when you deal with the left main? We have to have a global appraisal of the patient. Age, gender, way of life, cognitive status is very important. The functional class, diabetes, and other risk factors, COPD, heart failure, renal failure, all these things are extremely important. It is important in any intervention, but when it comes to left main, it is more important. And so we have to assess all these things. Also, we have to look at the lung function, whether this left main lesion is including the bifurcation, whether there is any calcification, whether there is any trifurcation, or it is associated with other diseases in the distance. Complexity by way of involvement of bifurcation and calcification. Other than that, it is extremely important to know how the right coronary circulation is. If right coronary is occluded, then it becomes extremely serious affair because the risk of the procedure goes up tremendously. We also have to decide and understand whether we can do a complete revascularization and assess the number of stents we need. All these things would make an important issues regarding the acute and long-term result. When I mentioned about diabetes, it is extremely important to know that combination of diabetes with left main coronary artery disease, we have a significant difference between diabetic and non-diabetic. If you see in this slide, when you have diabetes, whether it is low risk or intermediate risk or high risk as per the syntax score, the risk of the procedure and long-term result is significantly affected by diabetes when compared to the non-diabetes. So when you make a decision, you have to be very careful with that. What are the other basics of decision making? Evolution of that technology has showed us the surgery has significantly improved the long-term result of the patients who suffer from left main coronary artery disease. I would strongly feel the greatest contribution we interventional cardiologists have given to medicine is making the surgeon do a better job. We challenged them at every step and made them also improve along with us. And so they came up with the total arterial revascularization and mid-cap surgeries. This has significantly changed the outcome and the morbidity of the surgery. And when it comes to PCI, there has been so many changes, so many evolutions has happened in the last 30 years. Starting from the plain old balloon to stents, biodegradable polymers free, and even quality of stents and bioabsorbable stents, which is likely to come back in this decade, even though it did have a setback. When we finally decide, based on all what I described, to go ahead with the left main angioplasty, we have to think of how to optimize our result. It is extremely important to do that because our long-term and acute, as well as the acute result, depends on that. We have to analyze precisely the left main anatomy before we make this decision. We need to know various techniques of left main stenting, and we also have to optimize the stent deployment. Let us look at it. How do we do it? When it comes to the angiogram, we have to carefully review it. We have to review it and try to understand where all the disease is there. We know from the historical perspective that when you deal with left main, 70% of them have an involvement of the distal bifurcation. 50% of them has calcification, and 70% of them have multivessel disease or other distal vessels also are involved. So all these things are extremely important in your decision making. We also should understand the optimal views. What are the views in which you will try to understand the anatomy? Because if you don't visualize the bifurcation well and the vessel structure and left main very clearly, it's very, very difficult to get an optimal result. Some of the very important views are apicaudal, RA caudal, LA caudal, that is the spider view, RAO cranial or epicranial. These are the views which will give us a good delineation of the vessel and the bifurcation very clearly. We must try and take a proper angiogram before we make the decision. We have been seeing angiograms over the last 30 or 40 years. We always thought Indian patients from Indian subcontinent has small vessels. I see the same kind of disease you see in Bangladesh. We see a lot of diffuse disease. We see all these vessels looking very small. I have seen so many vessels looking 2 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter left main, and LED and circumflex looking 1.5 to 2 millimeter. Actually, that is not true. How did we realize that? When we started looking at all these vessels with the intravascular ultrasound and OCT, we started realizing they are not small vessels. They are equally big as any other nationalities. It is the diffuse nature of the disease what we are dealing with in our part of the world. Patients generally come to us in this part much late, so the vessels are diffusely involved and there is a lot of adenomatous changes and calcification in those vessels. That's why it looks small. But in practice, today we see Indian or Bangladeshi vessels are not as small as what we see. They are as big as 4 to 5 millimeter or even bigger in some cases. Left main and LE and circumflex are 3 to 3.5 millimeter in size. If we don't get an optimal result bringing to that level, we are not likely to get a good long-term result. It's extremely important to evaluate the vessel diameter and decide what is our strategy. Today, with the advent of intravascular ultrasound and OCT, we are able to visualize the vessel so well, and we can make these decisions more critically and more correctly. When it comes to the different techniques, let us look at what are the different techniques what we employ in interventions. The most popular and easiest technique would be the provisional stenting. This is very useful when the side branch is small and side branch is more or less disease-free and no critical disease in that vessel. You can have a stent placed from left main into the LAD. Very often, you can get away with only placing the stent, no compromise on the flow, no FFR reduction in the circumflex, then we don't have to even do a kissing balloon. If necessary, you can follow it up with a kissing balloon, and we are likely to get a very satisfactory result with this. If you look at all the different types of stenting, if the patient needs only single stent and provisional stenting for the circumflex, by and large, they are the subset which will do very well long term when compared to all other techniques. This is possible only in selected few, and they are the most benefited patients. When we have no choice, we have to go on to two-stent strategies also. When it comes to two-stent strategies, when the distal left main alone is involved, the shaft as well as the ostium is disease-free, you can, as in this case, what you can do is you can position two stents simultaneously into both vessels and deploy it as a V-stent by simultaneously deploying both or one after another and end off with a kissing balloon, and you are likely to get a very satisfactory result. In this case, post-dilatation with both balloons open, and this is the final result. We very often see this type of lesion. This is 1-1-1 lesion, left main, LAD, and circumflex is involved. But if you look at the angle is 90 degrees from left main to the circumflex, and LAD to circumflex is also 90 or closer to that. It may not be exactly 90, but reasonably closer to that. This is an ideal situation when we have to use two stents. You can stent into the LAD and then another stent into the circumflex, and without much protrusion or very little protrusion into the parent stent, you may be able to get an optimal result. As in this case, the final result after final kissing is very satisfactory. And this is also, if properly done, has got extremely gratifying long-term result. What is the TAP technique? What is the difference between TAP technique and the T-stenting, what I just described? Here, what happens is part of the stent will protrude from the circumflex into the main vessel. So what we are doing in this case, we have got a stent placed from left main into the LAD, and then you recross into the circumflex, dilate that, and place another stent into the circumflex, and part of the stent protrudes into the left main. short protrusion of circumflex into the left main stent, and finally end up with a kissing balloon that is called the tap stenting. So in T stenting, you have very minimal or the stent protrusion into the main lumen, whereas in tap, you have some protrusion into the main lumen. The Coulott is a very, very useful technique when both vessels, the LAD and the circumflex are almost equal or very close to each other. You can have two wires in both vessels and place one stent protruding from the left main into the circumflex, then recross through that stent into the LAD, follow it up with that stent, and finally follow it up with a kissing balloon. This is a very, very useful technique when we are in doubt whether we will miss any of the ostia of the side branches. Here, your chances of missing any ostia is very little, but you must understand that you will have two stents in the main branch and you have to optimize the result. And I would strongly suggest that we should always follow it up with an IVUS or OCT. What is the crush technique? Crush technique is used when we are in doubt that we may not be able to get an access to the side branch after stenting the main branch. So what we do here, different from the other stents, one stent is placed into the, both vessels are dilated properly, and one stent is placed from the circumflex into the left main when we already have a wire and balloon in the LAD. I would suggest that you should always have a wire and balloon in the LAD in case you may not be able to cross through the stent into the side branch. Then crush that stent with the LAD stent, follow it up with another stent into the LAD, and final kissing, reaccess the side branch and do a final kissing. Here, what will happen is part of a stent from the circumflex or the LAD will be crushed underneath the stent. Long-term result in this technique is not as good as the earlier other described techniques what I have done so far. What is the DK crush? DK crush is another two-stent strategy. After every stent, you have to do a kissing balloon and final kiss after both stents. Chances of reaccessing the side branch and stent apposition is likely to better. Acute and long-term results appear to be better than other two-stent strategies. As of today, this is the information we have. This is one of the best techniques if we can do it. How do we optimize after doing all these things, whether it is Coulott stenting or DK crush or mini crush, whichever it is, how do we optimize it? With the advent of OCT and IVUS, we are able to see the stent very clearly in IVUS. So same way we can see the stent very clearly in the OCT. With this, we can optimize it. You can upgrade the balloon size and get an optimal result with the stent opposing the vessel wall very clearly. This is an absolute must if you want to deal with the left main coronary arteries and especially a bifurcation stenting. This technique is difficult, controversial. Presently, patients with preserved early function and non-calcified lesion, bifurcation lesions involving ostium of the LAD and circumflex can be treated with this technology today. PCI can be considered very clearly in elderly patients, small circumflex, no additional complex lesions, that is low syntax score, poor surgical candidate. Of course, this is a much better option. like distal coronary artery disease, unfavorable for CABG, or high surgical risk with a high Euro score, comorbidities like obstructive lung disease, malignancies, earlier radiation, or immunosuppressive drugs, so many limitations, and coronary intervention would be superior to that of surgery. But surgery is clearly superior with patients with poor LV function, and as I said, diabetes and multivessel disease, when there is distal bifurcation as well as the LV dysfunction. Distal bifurcation with the occluded RCA, I strongly would in favor of CABG. Additional complex lesions in the other vessels with the high Syntax score. These are the patients today we would consider more seriously for surgery. There are limitations for surgery also. And as we know, advanced age, severe lung disease, severe systolic dysfunction, renal insufficiency, various other problems as I described, immunosuppressive drugs, malignancy, and cognitive dysfunction. Surgery should be considered as a second option, and angioplasty would be more preferable. Now, looking at the historical perspective, historical studies with balloon angioplasty or bare metal stent report are best inconsistent intermediate term success. At the worst, unacceptably high rate of restenosis was what was seen in earlier days. So that situation, angioplasty was not a great option at all. After the advent of better technique and better skill level, what has happened? We are seeing more and more patients undergoing coronary intervention. In 2005, AHA, ACC, and SCI classed them as class 2B in circumstances where excessive surgical risk was there. When it came to 2011, same associations have upgraded unprotected left main PCI in low and intermediate complex lesions with excessive surgical. So this has been upgraded to grade 2A and 2B in complex lesions with high surgical risk. Syntax, this is a slide which is all of you are very familiar. You have been seeing it for years. And what does this gave us some information on it, though this trial was not powered to look at the left main coronary artery disease alone. We did have some idea from Syntax about the long-term result of angioplasty in multivessel coronary artery disease as well as the left main coronary artery disease. What was different? Subset analysis from the Syntax trial suggested that DS may be an acceptable option for patients with coronary artery disease with low or moderate coronary artery complexity. Based on recent upgrades and guidelines, let us have a look at the other alternatives in left main coronary artery disease. But there have been sort of a lot of limitations for this trial. The Syntax is considered outdated. Why? Syntax left main disease was just a subgroup. Patients where CABG was established, has established the benefits, like patients with multivessel disease, high Syntax score was included in the study. 1 year follow-up proved to be insufficient time frame to capture the true benefit. First generation drug-eluting stent was used in the study. IVUS and FFR guidance was uncommon. So this is a major concern. First generation of drug-eluting stent as well as IVUS and FFR was not used commonly. And the angiography follows a discretional, not a standard format. And bus standards of CABG were also not used or underused. So with all this, where did the recommendation go? In the United States, in 2014, remained that 2AB and 2BB was the guideline given by the US group, whereas Europe has changed. It has been little more liberal, and low syntax score, they gave 1B classification. Now, let us go to the second part of my lecture. What is the update from the recent trials and guidelines after syntax? What has happened? Did we have any additional information to correct us and give us a guideline what we should do? Left main coronary disease purely depend on the complexity of the lesion, comorbidities, complete revascularization, LV function, and patient's preference. This I have very clearly described already. What are the, when it comes to 2020 in left main coronary intervention, what are the evidence available? What are the guidelines available? How we can do it in very complex lesions? And what is the take-home message? At 1 year conclusion of syntax, CABG remains the standard care for patients with three-vessel disease as well as left main coronary artery disease. So left main coronary artery disease, the standard of care was CABG. This is because it resulted in low combined endpoints and major adverse events when compared to angioplasty. So that was the recommendations given at 1 year. So the subset analysis, when the conclusion from the syntax is, subset analysis of syntax trial suggested that DS may be an acceptable option for patients with left main coronary artery and low or moderate coronary artery disease complexity. This was the recommendation. As I said, there were so many limitations for this trial, especially those which I described quite earlier. Now let us look at dedicated trials. The syntax, the main difficulty was that it was not powered enough and it was only a subset analysis. Excel was one of the earliest randomized trial looking only at left main versus CABG. And the primary endpoint at 5 years, all cause death, stroke, MI, and multiple implications were looked at. There is hardly any difference between both groups. And what was the conclusion? In Excel trial, the treatment of patients with left main coronary artery disease and visually assessed low or intermediate syntax score with cobalt chromium stent resulted in similar rate of clinically meaningful composite endpoints at the end of 5 years. This is what we were looking at. This gave us a foundation for considering coronary intervention in left main coronary arteries. Soon after that, another trial came out, got published, which was the Noble trial. This again, all of you are familiar with. We see significant difference in case of myocardial infarction, stroke, and repeat revascularization. Surgery has significant edge over PCI. The total MACE, the difference was again p-value was very significant, 0.0002. Surgery definitely had an edge. And what is the conclusion from the Nobel trial? PCI remained inferior to CABG in 5-year MACE. CABG was superior to PCI. Also in the group with index score less than 23. All-cause mortality was similar for PCI and CABG. Only mortality was similar, but the CABG was definitely superior. And PCI resulted in a high rate of non-procedural myocardial infarction and repeat revascularization. On all counts, in Nobel trial, surgery had an edge. And what is the summary derived out of Excel and Nobel? In Excel, MACE and mortality curves of PCI and CABG crossed at 3 years and will likely to continue to diverge thereafter. Nobel, these curves are already diverged in favor of CABG, and divergence is likely to accelerate. So there is no doubt surgery has an edge over angioplasty in conclusion of this trials. Soon after that, there came a 10-year follow-up of the old syntax patients. Something surprising happened in this trial. If you look at the subgroup, low and intermediate group, actually intervention favored for left main coronary artery disease. Why did that happen? It's a small subgroup, but this is the fact. So there was a comparable survival benefit PCI and CABG in left main coronary artery disease was the conclusion. The pre-combat is another dedicated trial of left main. There is no difference between CABG and angioplasty at the end of 10 years. Let us look at some of the angiograms and some of the work we do. There is a bifurcation lesion, both osteas are involved. You can see post-dilatation, 2 stents are getting implanted, and this is the end result of that patient. This is the first type of stenting, what I described in the technique part, and that is the final result. And this is the 9-month follow-up of the same patient. It is consistent and the result remains. Usually, when the results remain at 9 months, they are likely to stay, provided the patient takes care of themselves. This is an elderly gentleman with an occluded LAD, and the osteal diagonal is diseased. The ramus is diseased. The OM is completely occluded. So we are dealing with a very complex situation. You have got a trifurcation lesion involving the LAD distally is total. Unless we get all these vessels open, they are not going to likely to do well. You cannot go and do only the diagonal and try to do something for the circumflex. That is not enough. You have to do a complete job. That's what we did in this particular case. This is the final result we have. And this is the 9-month follow-up. The LAD stent, the circumflex stent, ramus stent, all are widely patent, including the diagonal. This is another patient. This is the type of disease you and I see on a regular basis. Elderly lady in her 60s, diffusely diseased, the LAD right from the ostium, disease at the ostium, disease of the circumflex at the ostium, and there is a disease in the proximal segment also. What do we do with these patients? The surgeon refused to do take her for surgery because he said LAD is not graftable. Only for one OM graft, I don't want to take her for surgery. And what options we have. And what did we do? We used a cutting balloon. This is 2001. Cutting balloon for the circumflex. Followed it up with a rotablation of the entire segment of the LAD. We cleaned up the whole artery and used the distal part only POBA, and proximal part we put one stent and did a kissing balloon for both stents. And this is the final result we got. Circumflex and LAD looks decent. The distal area looks clean now, with used only rotablation followed by balloon. And we have lucky to have a 3-year follow-up of that patient. Actually, the vessel is looking much better than what was our final angiogram picture when we left the patient 3 years before. This is what angioplasty can do in some of the patients. When we have to deal with such a challenging case, you have got a densely calcific circumflex and LAD ostium as well as the distal left main. You see actually this is a Mercedes sign. You see all the 3 vessels 90% plus with a ball of calcium sitting in the bifurcation. We managed to wire both vessels. We did rotablate the circumflex and followed by the rotablation of the LAD. And this is the final result we got post-ending. Very satisfactory result. This is a patient we did for a India Life case, unstable angina, very, very 81-year-old lady, very sick. She was weighing only 36 kilos and had an calcific left main, hardly see any left main there, short left main, LAD ostium, proximal circumflex ostium, all are calcified, and we see a thrombus after the OM1. This is a dominant circumflex. What did we do? We rotablated the LAD, then rotablated only this part. We didn't take the burr anywhere near this thrombus. We left it alone and only put a stent there after opening these 3 stents, LAD, circumflex, and another stent in the distal circumflex, posterior circumflex, and optimized it, and this is the final result we could achieve. This is a very interesting case I want to share with you all. This is again LAD circumflex proximal calcific vessels. You can see the calcium in both LAD and the circumflex even before the angiogram is being taken. So, as we did in the earlier case, we decided to rotablate both vessels. There is the circumflex rotablation, followed by LAD rotablation. Got a decent result post-rota. We decided to use 2 stents, 3.5 for the circ, which was looking at big vessel, and a 2.75 for the proximal LAD and post-dilated. What happens? We have a significant perforation at the distal left main. It's a very, very messy situation. If we have any complication in a left main bifurcation, it's very, very difficult to handle. Here, how do we treat it? this is at the distal left main. You have to, if you want to put a covered stent, my covered stent will have to extend from the circumflex into the left main that will occlude the LAD. So this was a challenge. What we did is we wired both together again and kept a balloon. We have a stent in the LAD, kept a balloon ready in the LAD and brought a covered stent extending into the main and deployed the covered stent, followed it up with a kissing balloon, with the plain balloon and the covered stent like this. And this is the result. We could seal that perforation. You can see actually the covered stent margin very clearly in this case. And this is the final result. In 2020, what is the difference? What do we do different from what we used to do? This is again distal left main bifurcation lesion, in very tight lesion of calcific lesion to the circumflex and the LAD. What we did is we are wiring with the rotawire into the circumflex, rotablated. We got a good cut, follow it up with a OCT to decide what is the lumen size, left main size, circumflex and the LAD size independently. Did OCT of both vessels, and on the basis of that, we selected our stents, treated them, and this is the final result we got. And we follow it up with another OCT of both circumflex and the LAD and the left main. We want to make sure by the end of the procedure, it has to be a perfect result. All these things we can do. We are totally confused at the end of analyzing Noble, Excel, and pre-compact data as well as the syntax data. We don't know what we are doing is right, whether we should do it, and which group we should do it. When we are confused, what can we do? We go into looking at all this combined. We have some meta-analysis available, 18 meta-analysis available after the Excel and Noble results are out. Of that, let us look at two studies clearly. One meta-analysis which came in JAMA in 2017 included syntax, pre-compact, Excel, and Noble. All four was combined together. If you know, all of them had a 5-year follow-up. What was the end result? All death, cardiac death, MI, stroke, where there is no difference. P-value was not significant at all. Only repeat revascularization, there was a significant P-value of 0.001 was the difference. Repeat revascularization was higher in PCI. And PCI with DES versus CABG in left main disease, death, MI, and stroke, there is no difference at 5 years. Only repeat revascularization. Insight from the meta-analysis, in the current meta-analysis, low to intermediate risk patients with left main coronary artery disease, PCI was associated with similar rate of mortality, cardiac mortality, MI, stroke at a median 9 months period. But higher rate of unplanned revascularization was found when compared to CABG. Cardiac mortality differed in relation to syntax score, such as intended to be lower with PCI compared to CABG among patients with low syntax score. After this, 2020, in the European Heart Journal has come out with another meta-analysis. All the bishops of cardiology are involved. Yusuf Ahmad, Greg Stone, Kirtane, Martin Leon, Jeff Moses, all of them looked at the same trials, the same 4 trials. They looked at, I think they have combined one more trial, was they looked at 5 trials. And what was the end result? The risk of stroke, no difference. Risk of myocardial infarction, no difference. Risk of unplanned revascularization, there is a significant difference favoring that of surgery. What is the final conclusion? The totality of randomized clinical trial evidence demonstrated similar long-term mortality as we described all these things. PCI and CABG, unplanned revascularization procedure was less common in CABG, and that is the inference in all these meta-analysis and most of these trials. But I just want, before I conclude, I just want to point out one slide to you. Has volume got anything to do with the acute and long-term result of at least 30-day results of left main intervention? Of course there is. The high volume centers has got much lower mortality, cardiac death and stroke when compared to low volume operators. So volume and experience also definitely matters is the conclusion. Now where do we stand with the recommendation as far as the guidelines are concerned? 2014, in Europe it was 1B for PCI, but at United States it was 2AB still. And 2018, what is the European, where do we in Europe stand? It is 1A for both CABG and PCI with low syntax score and intermediate syntax score, it is 2A. This is a significant progress. In conclusion, PCI for left main coronary artery may be most appropriate for patients with limited life expectancy and elevated risk factors for CABG. Where are those patients? The subgroup of patients are the same I described earlier, advanced age group and various other comorbidities. In conclusion, what do I practice? Will we treat all left main coronary arteries with PCI? No, only if you can achieve a perfect result. At the end of the procedure, left main and the distal vessel should be clean with good distal runoff. You should be able to meet the 5, 6, 7, 8 criteria or better than that. Liberal use of rod ablator, cutting balloon, or high pressure balloon, IVL has to be used wherever it is needed. Less than 1% will need LV assist device like ECMO or Impella. These devices are needed only to tide over the hemodynamic instability, not necessarily related to PCI procedure. LV assist device may be an expensive luxury in many of the unprotected left main, what I see in the literature. I would strongly advise imaging preferably in all cases. IVUS preferably in aorta ostial lesions and OCT for the other vessels as well as the distal left main. Still, all evidences are more in favor of CABG. My personal view is that after Excel Noble syntax score based recommendation seems to be outdated. At the very least, based on Excel, low and intermediate risk categories should be evaluated more critically. Recommendations should become more class 1 for PCI and no longer an alternative to CABG, but an acceptable or even preferred choice in selected subgroup of patients. With more randomized trials, the current B level of evidence of left main, unprotected left main revascularization by PCI and CABG should be upgraded. In general, I expect new left main recommendations to be more patient-centric based on early and long-term trade-offs of the procedure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Excellent elaborate lecture. I think everybody learned from your lecture. Professor Madhu, sir, will you comment regarding the lecture and Professor Abdul?
Well, it was a discourse from a master speaker. That much I can say. I think the audience will have many questions, and I want to ask Dr. Matthew one question. What about the LAT, left main ostial lesion? Isn't PCI much better in those cases? Bifurcation is quite clean.
I know I forgot to mention about that. The controversies are only for the distal left main. That's why I addressed that. As far as the shaft and the ostium is concerned, and angioplasty would be the preferable choice of treatment compared to CABG surgery. There is no randomized data selectively looking at that, but our experience definitely an ostial left main as well as the shaft of left main, PCI is superior to surgery.
Yes.
Less mobility, less complication, less problems. If the patient ostial left main as well as shaft left main, we discharge the patient next day.
Sir, I have got one question to you, sir. I'm Dr. Momenuzuman.
Yeah,
sir,
yeah.
If you consider you said there is a repeat revascularization is one of the major difference between the CABG and PCI.
Absolutely.
What you do with this patient with if need repeat revascularization? Do you prefer repeat angioplasty or you prefer to send for surgery?
It all subgroup. If it is only one of the branches, we are talking about the bifurcation, one of the branches having restenosis, and if it is not done in our center, I would definitely go ahead or if there is no IVUS or OCT is available for that patient, when the primary procedure was done, I would recommend strongly in favor of OCT and IVUS and base all decisions on that. If any one of the stent where there is restenosis seen was underdeployed stent, I would definitely go in for a repeat angioplasty. If it is not an underdeployed stent, it's a well-positioned stent, and then there is a significant recurrence, probably surgery would be a better choice because re-recurrence in non-underdeployed stents, the re-recurrence is significantly high, at least 30%, I would say.
But how in diagnostic angiogram, how you can identify it is underdeployed? Is it you selectively?
You cannot. So if
you cannot,
if it is in our center, all of them will have an IVC OCT record with them. If it is any other center where IVUS or OCT was not done at the end of the procedure, then I would suggest that let us look at it with an IVUS or OCT and then make a decision would be my recommendation. Because there is a very, very clear distinction between an instant restenosis in a well-deployed stent versus an underdeployed stent. Underdeployed stent do very well if you deploy it properly.
Thank you, sir. Professor Fazila Malik, Madam. Professor Fazila Malik. Madam, do you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can. Thank you. So thank you for a great lecture. We always learn such a lot from you, Dr. Matthew. Over the years, you've been teaching us and we have learned so much. So thank you for giving this wonderful lecture. I had a question. You showed the V stenting. Well, my concern is that if you do a V stenting, isn't there always a chance that you might end up with an SKS and then you end up with a double lumen, which you don't really want?
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. It's a very, very genuine issue we face. I would not do an SKS if my stent has to protrude more than maybe a millimeter or two into the left main. If it is only 1 or 2 millimeter, when you deploy the stent, they invariably come very close to the junction, and then reaccess is not an issue at all. They do very well. If I don't like to have an SKS in the left main, various limitations, because reaccessing is a major concern. If there is a problem, to deal with it is very difficult. Your point is well taken. We should not do an V stenting if it is going to land up with an SKS.
Thank you, sir. Professor Mir Jamaluddin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mohsen. Thank you, sir. You are the teacher of teachers. So we have learned many things from you. But I have some query to you that when a left main disease involving the mid shaft to bifurcation and double stent strategy is indicated or single stent strategy is indicated, whether should we cover the entire left main, meaning that remaining 5 millimeter or 6 millimeter IVUS disease free? My question, sir.
If it is involving the shaft of the left main, even if the ostium is not involved, there is, assuming that 4 to 5 millimeters of the ostium is still disease-free. This is judgment on the basis of an angiogram. I would use the stent from the ostium itself. If it is information on the basis of an OCT, I would go by the OCT finding, and I may not project into the ostium, because this is a very crucial decision. If we have an OCT or an IVUS, if you don't have it, I would strongly suggest that you should have the stent covering the left main ostium also, because you don't know what we are missing. But still, even though we are dealing with the financial constraints in our part of the world, it's same with your country and my country. We would like to reduce the cost as much as possible because the patients can't afford. But when it comes to left main, I would request, you should request all of you to pass on the message to the youngsters. Please don't do it without imaging, because you have everything to lose. The slightest mistake, you don't have a chance to correct the mistake. You lose the patient straight away. We cannot afford to do that. If we are doing it, do it properly. Otherwise, don't handle left main. Let the surgeons handle it. Please use it. We have paid heavy price in our initial years before the days of IVUS and OCT. We have lost patients. We did not have the information. We have had postmortems of patients who had lost their life with the left main stenting. We have seen underdeployed stent, undersized stent, so many issues which we never realized. We have seen dissection at the end of the stent, which was gone unnoticed only on the angiogram. Please, after seeing all this, I would strongly recommend it is a must to have imaging at the end of the procedure. Even if you don't do it before, at the end of the procedure, you should have an imaging.
Thank you.
Sir, but I like to differ a bit, as because if this patient have left main restenosis, or we shall have to do once again angiogram, if I cover the left main ostium and hanging 1 or 2 coil of the stent into the aorta, then it is very difficult to do a subsequent procedure like angiogram if necessary. And that is why I like to tell that if the ostium and within 5 millimeter is disease free, proved by IVUS, then should I keep it free of stent or not?
Dr. Jamal, your point is well taken. If the stent protrudes into from the left vein into the aorta, then calculation becomes tricky and is difficult. But today, the techniques, there are so many techniques using two wires, manipulating the guiding that it avoid the stent protruding into the left vein is technically easy. And all of you, I have seen Mohammed Zaman doing cases, Fazila doing, all of you do a wonderful job positioning the stent from the left main ostium very clearly. With this knowledge is available to all of us with the excellent imaging. What is available to us, I don't think it's a major issue at all. We should avoid protrusion of the stent from the ostia into the aorta. That is correct. But the skill level is available to all of you there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, one question. Sir, nowadays, many interventionists in our country, they are doing left main, doing very good in a sense, but many of us are not actually using the imaging. So can we follow some category, like most of the vessel proximal LAD, LAD circumflex at left main is around 3.5, 5 and 4. So if we can dilate this vessel with this balloon, and if the most of the cath lab have got the facilities to stent boost or some form of technique, we can identify the expansion of the stent well. Is it I should say, is it not enough to avoid
it's a very, very fair question. I totally appreciate your question. See, if I feel even in our part of the world, if you see the left main is around 5.5, and you see the circumflex and the LAD in the 3 to 3.5 range, yes, I would not, even if I don't have an IVUS, I'll go ahead and treat it, because world over statistics shows that the left main is 4.5 to 5.5. That is only in 99% of patients. So is 3 into 3.5 circ and LAD. If we are getting that kind of vessel size, and that means the distal vessels are not so badly diseased, the lumen is maintained, you can safely go ahead and stent it. But the question comes, if you see a left main which is 2.5 millimeter and the LAD 2.5, 2 millimeter circumflex, will you take it as that and will you say 2.5 or 3 millimeter and put it there? Then it's a question, then it is a challenge. If so, I need imaging, because we cannot put a stent in that vessel because the vessel is much bigger.
But in any way, the vessel is not really 2.5. Whatever we see is because of the disease.
Yeah.
If you keep in mind that there is although it is looking like 2.5, but it is actually 3.5. If I go for a IVUS estimation or OCT, it is not 2.5. In your experience, you have seen that it is not 2.5, it is 3.5. So on that background, can we, I'm talking about the dose. So if you say that it is not ideal to do PCI without imaging, and in that case, at least 90% of our intervention will be afraid to use this, afraid to handle this sort of patient. But in any way, arbitrarily, can we do this?
Okay. See, my only challenge is assuming you see a 2.5 or 3 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter vessel, distal LED, and 2.5 or 3 millimeter left main. If you select a 4 millimeter stand, under deploy, no, I'm just hypothetically speaking, or a 3.5 millimeter stand and deploy it in the proximal LED, you cannot do it because what happens is the LED is measuring only 2.5 and 3.5, the landing zone, whether you will have a dissection is the major issue. We don't know. You put in a 2.5 and try to expand the stent to 3.5 or 4, then you distort the stent altogether. There is challenges. There is a risk. I don't know whether it's worth taking.
Sir.
Yes, we'll try to use this device.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Sir. Yeah.
Sir, thank you, sir, for your nice lecture. Sir, regarding Mominuzzaman sir's question, sir, that if LED and left main is same diameter and left main is disease, I think that in that case, the IVAS should be mandatory, sir. The diameter of left main and LED or LCX is around same position, then IVAS is mandatory. But if in our context, sir, in our country where IVAS is not available, that LED is well diameter, that means around 3.5 or 4, but sorry, left main is around 3.54, LED is not so disease vessels like 3 millimeter diameter. In that case, can we put stent without IVAS imaging?
Possible.
That is, LED, left main diameter is more than the LED diameter.
Can I add a supplementary question to that so that you can answer? How much can we expand a stand, extending from LED to left main or something like that? Which diameter can be expanded up to how much? That will the youngsters will be wanting to know.
Yes.
No. See, today most of the stand 3.5 can be expanded to 4.5. The stand, the Boston Scientific stands as well as the Medtronic stands can even go up to 5.5. That is a 2.5 stand. If you try to make it to 3.5 or 4, then you destroy the stent totally because the whole stent structure is distorted. You should not do it. Try to make it as optimal as possible to the size you want to finally arrive at and select the stent. Don't overexpand the stent. That is a bad habit. The overexpanding a stent should not be more than 0.5. That is my dictum to myself. 0.5 in an exceptional case in left main, I may stretch it to 0.75, not more than that. So if the left main, the LED or the circumflex size is 3 or 3.5, I would strongly feel you can put a 3.5 or 4 stent and under deploy it in the LED or circumflex, whichever vessel you are going to deploy the distal end of the stent, and place it at about maybe 7 or 8 or 9 atmospheres. Come back and take a high pressure balloon, 4 millimeter, 4.5, and expand the stent optimally. So the advantage of this, you have a 4 millimeter stent in the left main. You are under deploying it in the LED. That you can do that and post dilate it with a optimal 1:1 size, 3 or 3.5, whatever is the right size in the LED, and use a bigger balloon in the left main and expand it. That's quite possible, and that's quite gives us a very, very optimal result.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Professor Supriya Madam, Professor Supriya Rahman with us is the most senior on the senior intubation cardiology in Bangladesh. Professor Supriya Rahman, Madam, do you hear me?
Yes, she is here.
Madam, Assalamu alaikum, Madam.
Hi, Sophia.
Please unmute, madam.
You have to unmute yourself, madam.
Please
Madam, unmute. Unmute, madam.
I was the meeting and then I was disconnected by somebody and I couldn't see your lecture at all. Now, after a lot of effort, my daughter has connected me with another line.
I'll deliver a lecture especially for you.
You know, I was so glad to see you. You know, the intervention cardiology in Bangladesh, without you, it was not possible. They don't know this story, how much I have bothered you and how much you have helped me and to do this intervention in Bangladesh. Otherwise, all these boys are now doing very good job. And with your help, I started, and you, Dr. Kaul and A.B. Mehta, we have done a lot, but especially you have done a lot for me and for my country. I'm so grateful, so grateful.
Thank you so much.
And
Nice
also
to
we should
see
remember Mr.
what
Qasim.
done for us in the beginning.
Mr. Qasim.
Day and night he
Yeah.
supported me. Day and night he supported me. And I used to take my 35mm films for you. He used to review them and tell me what to do. And I came back and did it. Thank you, Matthew. I'm so grateful to you. And Mominur Zaman also went to you, and the others also gone. And all of them more or less has had the blessing from you and the whole Bangladesh. So we are really, really grateful. But I'm sorry, so much sorry that I missed your whole lecture. But nice that at the end I have seen you. I am seeing the others also. Thank you so much. Matthews, take care of yourself and hope we'll see you again. Thank you. I missed your lecture and I was connected and I was disconnected by somebody. I don't know why.
Thank
But
you, madam.
eventually another I've got connected. Thank you all. And thank you all of you who are now watching Matthews in his young age and in his time. He came Bangladesh so many times to start this intervention cardiology in Bangladesh, not to help me, to help the Bangladesh.
Madam,
And we are all.
Difference.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is only gray.
Sir.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's the same. He just hair is gray a little bit.
Fond memories.
Yeah, strong ones. You remember when you came to do the rotablator and then somebody stopped getting the machine from the airport. That was a politics. We had to finish the patient and doing other things. You remember that?
We live in a world of politics. So that's okay.
Yeah. So
All of us, but
okay, now
all of us progress from where we were, no?
I'm sorry they are working successfully. They are doing very good job. All my students doing very, very good job, Matthews. Pray for them. They should do much what they are doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam, being with us. Thank you, madam. Sorry for our technical problem. Then Professor Mohammad Shahabuddin from Sylhet is the head of Government of Sylhet Medical College. Professor Mohammad Shahabuddin.
Thank you, Professor Matthew sir, for your excellent presentation, excellent lecture. I will not ask any question to you, but I will remind all of you the old memories in 1980 when we are the students of medical colleges. We will see a series that is the $6 million man, and the $6 million man, Lee Majors, can do anything. He can run more than 100 miles per hour. He can jump over the buildings. He can see anything behind the obstacles. And during your presentation, I have seen that these things that Lee Majors is doing, the left main, critical left main, LED ostial, and left main ostial lesion so nicely that it is nothing to him for an expert hand to open these difficult lesions so easily and so nicely that it reminds us that there is no need for CABG nowadays. Thank you, Matthew, for your excellent presentation and excellent demonstration. Thank you, sir.
Now you go to another cases for our budding cardiologist. After that, we come to the panelist. Our budding cardiologists are waiting for case presentation before you. I think they are they learn a lot from your comments. Dr. Sakib Sariar is from fellow from NICBT. Please present your case. Is the assistant.
Respected chairpersons and all the panelists and all of our senior teachers and the one class expert from India, Dr. Matthew Samuels. Welcome you.
Sakib, you unmute yourself.
Do you hear me? Why left main PCI is different? Because left main PCI, left main, there is a specific anatomical characteristics. We have to deal with the ostial left main body, and bifurcation left main. And more than 75% of the cases are from bifurcation. And there is some challenges in procedural challenges also. There is left main is a large vessel, and NDLC is gradually caliber discrepancy. So we have to, when we cross over the stent from LM to LAD, we need to, we have some technical challenges also. And when there is a distal bifurcation stenosis, there may be chance of more calcification there, and single stent or double stenosis, which one is better? It should be taken care. IVAS or CT or FFR may be needed. And when there is body or ostium of the left main involvement, in this case, there is more fibrotic tissues there. So, and also the guide catheter and the stent making the procedure more challenging. So, left main PCI is an interesting subset for all the intervention cardiologists. Before my presentation,
You share screen again. You stop share and again.
Okay. Before my presentation, I acknowledge my teacher, Professor Amir Jamaluddin sir, who is the primary operator of the case, and I was present in his team. Case 1, 55 years old male, he is diabetic hypertensive, and echo was normal, ejection fraction 58%, ETD positive, and patient admitted in our center, a CAG done in another center 1 week before. And the coronary angiogram shows there is a significant lesions involving the ostium body, and also there is a haziness in the mid and the distal part of the left main, also haziness in the ostial LAD also. And circumflex vessel is normal, ostium looks good, but there is some 30 to 40% lesion in the RC also. So from this angiographic view, what should we go for the treatment strategy for this patient? Syntax was 26, and still it is the gateway whether we should go for PCA or CABG. So, or is there any more information needed for this patient? Then we can only...
Doctor, my first comment is no adverse remarks towards the radial angiography. This seems to be done in it's a radial angiogram. On the basis of this angiogram, I'll never make a decision, especially of left main. The angiogram views are insufficient, and because the lesions are not well clarified, you need better views, better angles. Without that, you should not make a decision on only based on this angiogram. This brings out the first part of my lecture, angiographic views for left main intervention. You have to be very clear. You have to delete delineate the lesion very clearly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You are very right. And here we can also see after engagement of the guide, we can see where before in the angiogram we show there is haziness in the mid part and also distal bifurcation area. But after guide engagement, we can see there is only osteal involvement and osteal left main involvement, and also haziness and disease in the osteal LAD also. So we need further information for this patient. So we go for IVUS because IVUS was present in our center. So IVUS should be considered to assess the severity of the lesion of the patient, and it is optimize the treatment, whether which one are the stent size, diameters, and where is the distal landing mark. It is very essential tool also, and it is class 2A recommendation. And from the IVUS, we can say osteal left main is significantly diseased with MLA of 4.75% of plaque area, around 60% plaque burden. And LM mid is also diseased, and osteal LAD is significantly diseased. But osteal sarc is disease, minor disease. And so we plan to go for PCI, LM to LAD crossover, single stent strategy. It is our strategy. We both we wire both the vessels with two floppy wires, one run through and metis. And it is better to go pre-dilation before any LM PCI. But from the IVUS, we see that there is no more calcium, so we go for direct stenting and stent placement in progress in different orthogonal views, because we have to cover the ostium of the left main. So it is very crucial every time when we put the stent from LM to LAD, and a healthy part in the LAD also. We give a 3.5 into 24 millimeter Evernemus dialytic stent, and the stent deployment is on progress in different views. Then we post-dilate the patient and secure the position and of the balloons by stent boost, and proximal optimization of the proximal part of the left main vessel also done by NC balloon, 4 into 8 millimeter balloon at 18 atmosphere pressure. This is the result after post-dilation. Then we again check the IVUS, and IVUS showed there is a no under expansion, and stent apposition is good with minimal stent area is also favorable, good optimum stent result in ostium, the mid part, and LAD ostium also, and mid LAD. And this is the final result after the procedure. It looks good result. My case 2, this patient is a 50 years hypertensive diabetic, E4 angina, and he has diagnosed unstable angina in 2017, and echocardiogram is normal. CAG done in another center, which showed bifurcation left main disease, Medina 111 lesion, and syntax score was 30 for this patient. We went for transradial approach and planned for PCI, but we go for heart team approach because syntax score is between 22 to 32. So, but patient denied for surgery, so we go for PCI. And for this patient, we go for transradial approach, a slender 7-inch 6 French sheath, and 7 French EVM catheter was taken. And these are the apparatus used during the procedure. IBUS was done before the procedure. We showed distal left main is critically diseased and also involving the osteal LAD and osteal LCX. Also some calcium in the osteal LAD also. We wet the both vessels and pedalate the both lesions, and we go for decay crush technique. And first LCX stent was placed and keeping a balloon from LM to LAD. Then deployment of the LM to LCX stent, it is 3.5 into 12 millimeter. It is a Promus Premier. Then first crash by the LM to LAD balloon to the LCX stent starts. Then first kiss done. Keep putting two balloons in the LM to LAD and LM to LCX. Then we put on the balloons and wire, jailed wire from the LCX, and LM to LAD stenting in progress, 3 into 24 millimeter. Then we again recross the LCX wire. And second case is done, keeping the balloons in LM to LAD and LM to LCX. And final kissing is done. And proximal optimization is also done by a 4 millimeter balloon, 4 into 8 millimeter balloon at 18 atmospheric pressure. Then we go for check the IVUS, and post-extending IVUS showed LM ostia having good minimal stent area and good stent apposition also. LAD ostium shows some calciums, and mid LAD and mid LM also showed good stent apposition, and there is no under expansion of the stents. And this is the final result of the after the procedure. And it is shows good optimal result. So my take-home message is nothing is complete alone. We still need an integrated approach with clinical manifestation, angiography. IVUS and OCT is needed in making our decision for LM-PCI. And in LM left main disease involving both branches, stent technique should be depend on individual patient's anatomical characteristics and operator skill, but a provisional stent strategy may be effective. Left main PCI should be done by an experienced and appropriately equipped PCI team. An IVUS guidance in LM-PCI is needed for lesion severity assessment, stenting technique, selection of appropriate device, and stent sizing maneuver. Finally, it minimizes the maze also. Thank you for your patient hearing. I acknowledge my team whom I am working with in National Institute of Cardiovascular Disease. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, Matthew sir, please few comments regarding your cases, sir. Matthew sir. Yes, sir.
In this case also, I'm not happy with the angiogram quality. I don't want to comment on that, because when we need definitely more clarity, even in the absence of IVUS, you need a lot of information before we decide on. So, end result looks all right, but it's very difficult to comment on that, Mohsin. I'm sorry I had to say that. And Mohsin and all the faculty and panelists for the earlier lecture, I have another webinar starting at 5. I may excuse myself in between. Really thank you, all of you. Thank all of you for such a wonderful invitation, and seeing all of you was a great pleasure for me. All old friends, at least I could see them and look at them and smile, and thank you very much. Bye-bye. In between, I'll go away.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you with us. Professor Abdul Wadud, sir, please few comments and say goodbye to the Jose Matthew Somial, but we should meet again in another lecture very soon, sir.
Can we go to the next case so that at least Dr. Matthew gets to see a bit of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
we can go
Just
to the
a few,
next
Dr.
case
Kolim,
and we can see a bit
Dr.
of
Kolim.
that, and then Wadud can conclude.
Okay, nice, sir. Dr. Kolimuddin, just quickly, Dr. Kolim. Okay.
Kolim, take your time and present. No
Yeah.
issues.
Okay.
Don't rush.
Guest speaker, respected panelists, and learned audience, Assalamu alaikum, and very good afternoon. I am Dr. Mohammad Kolimuddin, presenting from National Heart Foundation Hospital and Research Institute, treated by technique. This bar diagram showing left main in our hospital at a glance. From 2007, July 2020, we have done 2,245 left main PCI in our hospital. In 80% cases, our lesion is most lesion treated by single stent strategy and 20% double stent strategy. In double stent strategy, most of we use GK crash technique in 21% cases, tap technique 40% cases, pull-out technique 25% cases, and mini crash 30% cases. These cases were done by Professor Fadiluddin Malik on July 22, 2020. A 55 years old gentleman presented with chronic stable angina, CCS class 3, is a smoker, hypertensive, diabetic, dyslipidemic. ECG shows teen inversion in V1 to V4. The serum creatine level is 1.2. Echo reveals no regional wall motion abnormality with left ventricular ejection fraction 60%. And calculated syntax score is 32. As we know, according to 2014 AHA guideline, it is 2B indication and for surgery class 1 indication. And 2018 ESC guideline, revascularization guideline, it is 2A indication with to surgical consultation, but patient refused to do surgery and we decide to do PCI. Coronary angiography reveals 80 to 90% stenosis in distal left main involving the origin of LAD and ramus, 90 to 90% stenosis in the proximal LAD, 80 to 80% stenosis in the origin of ramus, and LCX dominant vessel having 70 to 80% stenosis in its proximal segment involving the origin of first OM branch, and RCA free of disease. We consider LCX as main vessel because it is left dominance, and if we consider the stent from left main to LAD, and we need 2 stent, but if you consider left main to LCX 1 stenting and then 1 stent from left main LAD, then we save the one. So due to economical price, we also consider, and we avoid the stent double stent in the LAD to reduce risks of in-stent stenosis. So LAD and ramus were wired, very gentle dilation done in ramus, that is overdone, 2.2 into 15 millimeter non-compliant balloon in ramus, and then left main to LAD pre-dilated with 2.75 into 15 millimeter non-compliant balloon. Image just after pre-dilation, we put 3 into 38 millimeter dark electricity placed in left main to LAD while keeping 3.5 into 8 millimeter non-compliant balloon in left main to LCS, and LED stent deployed at 10 atmosphere. LED were with balloon removed and stent crushed by LCX balloon. Rewiring of LED done with the help of microcatheter, and post dilation done in LED with 3 into 12 millimeter non-compliant balloon. Fast kissing balloon inflation done with 3 into 12 millimeter non-compliant balloon in left main to LED, and 3 into 50 millimeter non-compliant balloon in left main to L6. Then 3.5 into 26 millimeter drug eluting stent placed from left main to L6, and LED were removed. Stent deployed at 12 atmosphere. Stent balloon pulled back up to left main and inflated at 22 atmosphere. Proximal optimization technique, that is pot done with 4 into 8 millimeter non-compliant balloon at 24 atmosphere. Image after pot. Then wearing done in LED and stent start open with 2.5 into 10 millimeter non-compliant balloon, and final kissing balloon inflation done with 3.5 into 12 millimeter non-compliant balloon from left main to LED and same size balloon from left main to L6 and inflated at 12 atmosphere. This is OCT run, final OCT run. It is OCT, it's angiography, and angiography OCT co-registration. Stent is well approached, and this angiograph show excellent result. And coronary angiography OCT co-registration from distal to proximal, stent well approached, stent well approached. And this is almost near bifurcation. This is OCT image 3D navigation. Stent is well approached from proximal to distal, and we see bifurcation, and there is PTCA work, and stent is well approached. And it is 3D still image. There is side branch and stent PTCA work, and stent well approached. Finally, we then report with 4.5 into 8 millimeter non-compliant balloon at 22 atmosphere, and it is final angiographic result. Then in Europe PCR 2019 presented DK crash stenting technique with a 7-step procedure. This first step is side branch stenting, second step is balloon crash, third step fast kissing balloon inflation, fourth step main vessel stenting, fifth step proximal optimization technique, final is kissing balloon inflation, sixth step, and finally report. The take home message is DK crash is an effective technique during double stent strategy in this situation, and OCT is great tool for decision making and long-term better outcome. Left main PCI is always complex team complex PCI, and it is needs team approach, and we from our entire Catholic team, thanks to all.
Thank you. Dr. Matthew, sir, please your comments.
Yeah, this is a well done. There is no question. This is how the left main has to be done, and there is no more comment. This is well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You have another program.
Thank you, sir.
What is the next program? The program. So you.
Again, from the core of our heart, and from all the viewers and as well as the panelists, we really thank you. We are grateful and hope that in future we'll be seeing you again and again. At least at the safety of your home, we can see you over the internet and the Zoom meeting.
Thank you for coming over. Thank you. Really appreciate
Thank you, sir.
it.
Sir, one question, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Kaisar Rasulullah Khan. Kaisar Rasulullah Khan. Yeah.
Sir, one question. Sir, thank you so much for your nice presentation, sir. We learned a lot from you. Especially, I learned humbleness from you all the time. Sir, short question, sir. One, which bar do you prefer while you are doing left main, 1.5 or 1.75? Second, which is normal RPM while doing rotor left main? And third, which is very much critical for me, while doing left main to SARC rotor, there is 90-degree curve. I'm always afraid whether I'll perforate the artery or not. How would you take your bar from left main to SARC when there's a sharp curve like 90 degree? Thanks, sir.
As for the second part first, left main to circumflex, you have to start the rotation in left main. You have decided to send the left main, don't worry about that causing any injury to the left main. That doesn't matter. Even if it does, it's immaterial because we are going to send it. So you can start bearing, and when at the optimal speed, you can drive it down to the circumflex, slowly move it forward, peck it. Don't be in a hurry to complete the rod. You can cut and pull back, allow some blood to go downstream, wait for a couple of seconds, maybe half a minute, and then go again and cut and slowly cut. And what was the first question?
Which is your normal preferred bar in left main rotor, 1.5 or 1.75? And what is your RPM?
That will be decided purely on the severity of the lesion. Severe the lesion, smaller the bar. Usually I don't start with the 1.25. 1.5 is the minimum size, and probably I'll step it up to 0.75 or 2, depending on the vessel size.
RPM.
Very often 1.5 or 1.75 should be good enough. And invariably, I follow it up with a cutting balloon or an angiosculpt. If neither of them is not enough today, I don't know whether IVL balloons are available to you in Bangladesh. If it is available, that is a very, very good device in very large calcific vessels. You can under ablate the vessel and leave sufficient space for the shockwave balloon inside and get a 1:1 balloon, and it does a very good job.
Sir, your RPM, sir. RPM.
1.75 would be the ideal size.
Okay. I mean, sir, bar speed, sir. Bar speed, RPM.
Bar speed, sir.
Bar speed. Generally, my bar speed, irrespective of the bar size, would be around 1.7, 1.8.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Take care.
It was a good case, Fasila.
Actually, we don't want to.
Thank you.
We always miss
No,
it. So that's I know you are in a hurry.
I have another.
I know you are in a hurry, but we don't want to miss you.
Question is yeah.
Thank you. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Dr. Arun Maski, do you hear me? Dr. Arun Maski?
Yes.
Regarding the first case, you comment regarding the first case. Dr. Saqib doing the first case. Two cases. You comments regarding that.
It's already commented by Dr. Matthews. So, but I have to have comment for the last case.
Yeah.
That RCA looks like non-dominant. So you're doing a bifurcation lesions with the left main. So what criteria do you follow for a hemodynamic support in patients with a non-dominant RCA, though the ejection fraction in this patient is 60%?
Dr. Kolim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hemodynamic support.
What support you needed in the cath lab?
Because the RCA is a small non-dominant.
Yeah. Non-dominant RCA, bifurcation. What should be?
What is the criteria for a hemodynamic support, and which one you use?
But we are not doing. We are not using any additional hemodynamic support because it is our usual work that we are doing DK crash technique, and in our country we have no additional. We have no used IVP support or other impeller device. Not, but in these cases we have the ejection fraction 60%. So we do not need any additional hemodynamic support for this patient.
The question was, if you need it, because there's unprotected left main, non-dominant RCA, guess what he was asking? Please elaborate.
This is a very challenging case, right? This is a very challenging case. It's a left dominant system. The RC is non-existent. The good side for us here is that the ejection fraction is good. So when we are attempting such a complex lesion, first of all, you have to have a very well prepared team. The team everyone should know that anything can go wrong and what to do. Number two is, what we do is we have a strategy in mind what we will do. As such, we do not use an assist device routinely. We do not have impeller in Bangladesh. However, in our hospital, we do have the intra-aortic balloon pump, which we, however, do not use routinely, but it is in our cath lab. So theoretically, we can set it up if we need it, but usually we do not. But what we do on a regular basis is that we make sure that the blood pressure is high. What we do is we give the patient normal saline. This patient has a very good ejection fraction, so you can give him fluids, not an issue. He will not go into failure.
Can't hear you.
So you can't hear me?
No,
we can hear you.
Okay, right.
Steve, that may be your internet problem.
Yeah, so we give the patient normal saline. So he's on saline. The DOPA is plugged in. We haven't started it yet. And what we do is adrenaline. Always when we do a left main case, we take 1 ampoule of adrenaline and we divide it into 20 parts. Each syringe has 1:20 dilution of 1 ampoule of adrenaline ready. If we see that the pressure is going down, we push one of those ampoules in. That will bring the pressure up. But the main thing is we try to be as gentle and as methodical as possible so that complications don't arise.
Here, madam.
Noradrenaline or adrenaline? Which one?
Theoretically, there's though the ejection fraction is good, 60%. So Impella or IBP is not mandatory, I think. That is, if during procedure any problem is arise, then it may be needed. Regarding masking, in my opinion, is that in this case, though right coronary is non-dominant, but the ejection fraction is good, so Impella and IBP is not mandatory. Thank you, madam.
Madam, I want to know surgical backup. Should be needed the surgical backup in the hospital. I think that time.
Ideally, you would need a surgical backup, but in our hospital also we have a very good surgical backup.
Yes.
So far,
very
rarely we have had to ask our surgical colleagues. But if we should ever get into problem and someone runs to the Proshant or someone will come, the whole surgical team comes down. So that is one thing, there has to be very good teamwork. We have over these years have had to send for emergency surgery, but obviously emergency surgery outcomes usually is not it's difficult, but yes, surgical backup should be there.
My second question to ma'am is, if that ejection fraction was around 35 to 40, then would you use IBP first or use inotropes and do cases?
You see, if with this patient, left dominant, maybe I would not have been touching this case, right? Because this patient, if with a very poor ejection fraction, would have made the thing even worse. Sometimes you have to do, right? But obviously, a poor ejection fraction is a very bad prognostic sign, because if this patient should go into hypotension for whatever reason, he will crash in the table if he has a poor ejection fraction. So personally, a left dominant system with poor ejection fraction, ideally, you should avoid that kind of case. But sometimes you have to do this kind of case if the surgeon refuses. But at that time, the surgeon is well aware that you're doing this case and he's there as standby. But ideally, poor ejection fraction without, without Impella is high risk.
I think IBP. Yes, sir.
I like to add, madam, this is an excellent case, trifurcation left main angioplasty with RCA non-dominant. But to our knowledge, nowadays, in most of the cases with normal left ventricular function, hemodynamically all right, we do not need any support system other than this your adrenaline, what you have told. And
Dr. Caesar already pointed that out, yes.
That is not at all recommended nowadays. And besides this, I want to know from you, as because you have the left main case highest in Bangladesh. So how many cases in your life you have sent from the cath lab to operation theater? Have you understood my question?
But we didn't send any left main for surgery, okay? Once we sent a perforation, I have sent one perforation, and then maybe over these 20 years, 2 or 3 patients had to be sent for surgery. For surgery is not that common, right?
Meaning that very, very rare.
Very rare.
Thank you.
Mohsin,
yes, sir.
I'll have to go to another meeting.
Ending the program. Also, I thank everybody. Sir, please conclude the session.
Actually, this is a wonderful afternoon we have, isn't it? Seeing everybody together and seeing Professor Dr. Matthew and listening to his lecture and seeing these beautiful cases done by our cardiologists. And this gives us both pride and pleasure. Yes, we have been lagging behind, but we are really going ahead. And these programs are actually designed so that our youngsters can do much better than us. They have the chances of learning from the masters from home and abroad, and that they should use optimally, so that when we become elderly, if I need the left brain done, I should want to do it in this country by our youngsters or by our cardiologists. That will give me the most satisfying experience. And starting from the pioneer, Professor Sufia Rahman, and to the youngsters like Dr. Kolim and Sakif, we should all try to do our best to serve the country. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody, especially Professor Sufia Rahman, Madam, Professor Fazila Madam, Professor Mir Jamal sir, Professor Mamun Rashid, and Professor Dr. Sarwari Ranjan Rajgopal from the Malaysia, Dr. Arun Maski, everybody, thanks everybody. Our next class, mid the expert session, another master, Dr. Ashok Shet, with his lecture, How to Deal with Calcification. And two cases will be present from the two institute, one from the United Hospital, another from the Bardem Hospital, or that is the Ibrahim Cardiac Center. On 21st August, Friday, at 7:30 p.m. See you all again. Thank you. Goodbye. Stay safe and take care. Assalamu alaikum.